town.
And then the wire goes through there. So if you're looking at the side of the tooth, like these, side of the tooth, right? I'm like, that is so dumb. So I came up with a completely new version. Mine looks like this.
I did that too. I did that too. Who brought you that? Pandemic. Oh, yeah.
The wire goes through this little thing, and if you actually look at the side of the tooth, you can actually look at this.
Nice house.
And then the wire goes through there. Brilliant, I know.
Yeah.
Oh, telling you.
I just.
Come up with
Mr. Doug,
What's going on?
you down here for the 20%? Good.
Oh, yeah, I'm okay.
Okay. I think most people will probably stay an hour.
So like you text me like, hey, about 2.
But anyway, sorry.
26 by the time I read
I
it.
took your paper.
It's okay.
So it's one of those things that it's like, why can't we do this better? And then Kim does the Invisalign, right? So I think we're gonna, normally we do it kind of in this circle with the back lounge kind of area. So if you guys wanna kind of come over here and we'll kind of turn things around.
You and yourself try to avoid social media as much as
Oh, you are.
possible.
A lot of good work doing
I
it. Can I show you how to make a coffee? For all of us whenever we work out.
Sam, how are you?
Just turn these around.
Oh, you were so close to the door.
I bet it's a car. I was riding over here. Black soaks up the heat. Hey, how are you? How are you? I love your purple selfie this morning. So cute. You're so funny. Guess what you do? I'm so proud of you.
So if we do wide, doing everything.
Yeah.
And then
I'm Amanda.
I'm out of like stand in front. And then if we, see, I'll show you, watch. So if we do this.
And she also does unbilingual viewers
Oh,
too.
really? Okay. Look.
How's
Kim.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Hi, are you
Hi.
Steve?
I'm Garrett.
Garrett, Kim Minningham.
Nice to
Nice
meet
to
you.
meet you too. So Tim,
Yeah.
you do it, right?
I might want
I
to
could
see.
do it whenever like this year.
What's the camera?
You just have a Samsung that allows
Yeah, see what I mean? You have that cool phone.
I does.
Yeah, we
I does have my cool phone.
I told him I was gonna talk to a few people.
Because I'm looking for a new.
I don't
Yeah.
know. Oh.
But if it's teeny county, then.
I know, right?
This usually goes on several songs.
Yeah.
I remember, like, as a kid, there was like a reporter called
Right.
like, there's a song, but then the brand center.
Everybody.
Okay.
Just been-
Okay, so.
Yeah.
I figured. You know, I get it from this, because I know where he lives.
Yes.
But yeah,
So we're kind of creating this like pocketed area back here.
Well, I'm glad.
Figure we do it like we did last time.
flip it.
I'll flip it.
That's the only thing I really care about. So people that want to see. I'll progress. It's not me.
No.
I'm finance.
Right.
Even better. Even better. Yeah.
I didn't put it.
Where do we post it? Like,
Okay, excellent.
So where
Where are we supposed to send?
And then
That's the thing. What is going on to do with that?
Have everybody come up here.
I figured it was.
The podcast.
people are there.
in the middle, you're like.
Scoops. We'll probably
And I can't.
use that. And then people come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't really say.
So,
I don't see anything. Are you sure she put on?
yes,
So my coaching.
The last time we kind of had just this whole group back here.
Like 5 or 6 people were like working back there when we came in. Yeah. Because they've been down there for like an hour and I'm not gonna make it. I don't
Okay, yeah, this is good.
bother me. Works.
Do you want me to take a picture of you or? you selfie?
Yes, get it far enough back, you see me match.
Oh, it's there.
One, two, three.
Obviously, professional. Snapping photos. That's the right.
Yeah.
It's not-
We did it last
We
time.
don't have to go
It's like-
Like, for whatever reason,
Oh my gosh.
whatever reason, like everybody was like, when you started, I was like, yeah, screw it, I'm stopping back here.
Yeah. All back.
And this video,
Yes.
How are you? I'm loving the social media. You're doing great.
All right, guys, we'll go ahead and get rolling
All right,
here.
let's do it.
Welcome. I'm sure more people will trickle in,
Yeah.
trickle out. Come and go 100% as you need, please. Like, I get it. I'm a real estate agent as well. Text, take phone calls. I don't care. It's not like this isn't for me. So Josh Keats, one of the owners of the Veris Network. Been in real estate for about, how long, Blake, like 4 years, I guess. We were the same time, right?
No,
Hey,
you were longer than me.
not here, but like as agents.
Not the same age, I want that.
When'd you get your license?
We all started at the same time.
Oh, yeah, 4 years.
We all started.
Let me see if Brian can hear us real quick. Hey, Brian, give us a thumbs up if you can hear us okay.
Both Brian's.
Yeah, hey, we can hear you, but
Oh, yeah,
can you see
either
the
Brian.
camera a bit?
Yeah, can you zoom up the camera a little bit so it's more towards the back of the room?
Yeah,
That'd be
hold
great.
on, I'll do it. You keep going, Josh.
Not me, no.
I got you covered. Hold on, guys.
So anyways, guys, I like doing this. Part of my ALC is the growth committee, so I'm the chair of the growth committee. My vision of growth was, and I talked with him about this at the beginning of the year, wasn't necessarily on the focus of recruitment and bringing agents in. I figure a great way to recruit is by people seeing more red signs. Best way to do that is for everyone to get together. When I first started out, one of the most impactful things for me was the top 20% mastermind. They had them often. They had one that was an invite only, or not invite only, but a open invite. So kind of like what we're doing this time. Top 20% are really going to be the ones leading the conversation. It's also how our ALC meetings are, which is really cool. So like, if you see our ALC meeting on the calendar, come in, hang out, sit in the back and
Yeah,
listen.
you'll be back here, but
Conversations will be led by the ALC, by Tim, by the leadership, but you get to hear what's going on in that room. Really, really cool opportunity. That was some of the most impactful stuff for my business. And was the first way that I learned of like, my thinking was so small, right? So we do things like Bold, Mega Camp, Family Reunion that do that. Those are whatever, that's, I just named 3 times a year, right? Now, you know, this is going to happen every month and I just really wanted to focus on that. So really, the way I like to run it, it's a mastermind, exactly what a mastermind sounds like. We have about an hour, hour and a half. Give me 4 topics that we're seeing, we're encountering, we're having issues with, things we're doing really well and having success with that you're free to share or you're okay with sharing. That we can discuss today, because it's really gonna be a mastermind. It's gonna be an open conversation. This isn't me teaching. I would like to learn every time I come here too. So if you are a part of that top 20%, what are some conversation topics that we're seeing regularly right now? Blake, Doug, Kim, Maureen?
So I've seen thrown out on Facebook conversations around pricing properly to the market right now.
Yeah.
Helping set proper seller expectations around the pricing.
Yep.
What else?
I think managing sellers' expectations right now is a big thing that a lot of us have to focus on to kind of goes in line with pricing. But, you know, I've got listings coming up that they're expecting multiple offers. That may not happen. Listings are sitting longer. And I think that managing our client expectations is a big part of what we have to do right now.
For sure. 100%.
That's a conversation I've had so many times with every seller is that, yes, we used to get 10 offers, we might only get 2, but we only need 1. So it doesn't make any difference how many you've got as long as you get the one, I had, I can't remember what it was, a listing here 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I had 6 agents show it, and they all told me I was way overpriced and I was crazy and I was this, and then the 7th one wrote a full price offer.
Yep.
And cash closed, and I thought I was really high too. But it worked, but this goes to the fact that it only takes 1.
Statistically speaking, the first offer is your best offer.
I haven't heard that in a while, but that's,
Yeah.
that's the reality, is that you may get an offer, if you turn it down, you may be wanting that offer 6 weeks from now.
So piggybacking off of that, a good conversation to have would be around affordability. So I think things have kind of stabilized a little bit now, but there has been, particularly in the smaller markets where we're from, with Lebanon and everything, there's a smaller sample size, so it's felt a little bit more greater when you go from 10 pending contracts a week to 4, for example. So affordability is a really hot topic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Reinvigorating buyers who gave up in the previous market, figuring out how to get them passionate about their search again.
Has everyone else been getting bombarded with lenders in the last 2 weeks? Like, don't forget about me. We're back. You need me again.
Relaunch.
It's been interesting. I think we have I had 4 lunch invites and 3 golf tournament invites in the last 10 days.
Wow.
There's a lead generator now, what do we do?
I was like, what is this? Who are you guys, right? Gary, you got anything? Conversations, topics that keep coming up? Issues, struggles, successes? You'll talk when it comes back.
I'm good.
We know you do. So, guys, I think my favorite one, I think one that we really all kept circling back to, right? Seller expectations right now, whether that's pricing, whether that's showings, whether that's offers, whether that's whatever side of it that may be on. Things are different than they were 6 months ago. It's a different market. It's not a good market, not a bad market. It's just different, right? So I'm going to look at the managing expectations as a whole, right? And I think that really starts from the initial phone call. I think it also starts from what people are seeing online. So you've got people like, Paulina and Blade that are all that's how people see you, right? That's where you're generating. Well, your story the last 6 months, right? A year, where listed it, 17 offers, 24 hours, 40,000 over list, right? Now you're fighting your own conversation that you created.
Yeah.
What are we doing to counteract that? What are we doing to future pace that in our clients going forward, right? Over the next, you get ready to sign paperwork and they're going to list in a week. When they're like, oh, you're going to make a post about me? Because I've had them, say it. I don't make Facebook posts that much, so they're not talking about mine, but right. What are you guys doing? What are you guys seeing? What's the conversation that you guys are having success around on that topic? Anybody, not just for the 2 that I named. Amy?
I just ask a lot of questions.
Yeah.
So what have you heard? What have your friends told you about the local market? What are you expecting to see? If I could wave my magic wand and make this transaction go just the way you wanted, what are you hoping for?
Mhm.
And, they'll tell you exactly where their thoughts are, and you'll know right away if they are in line or out of line with what the market is going to bear.
For sure. For sure. I think one thing that I've had success with recently with clients is being a little conservative on pricing. The market's still going to drive it, right? Within reason. Right, to Doug's point, or your best offer, maybe your first one, if you don't get one, you don't have anything to base it off of, right? So had some listings that, you would expect them in the past to get multiple offers and a line out the door and all that stuff. They haven't been that way. So been really conservative on that price. They may not love it up front, but you're able to still have a good conversation with them as you're bringing them action. But again, it's something that starts from the very beginning, right? And somebody brings it up to me that they're considering selling. It's like the conversation starts being trickled in. It's the same thing as, when I'm working with a buyer, I pull up the MLS when they say, hey, my budget's 200 and I want a 4-bedroom in Ozark with a walkout basement. And you pull that search up and you say, here it is. Well, I'm kind of doing the same thing to them, saying, hey, you want 400,000 for your house. Here's what else they could buy for 400 grand. Which house are you buying, right? It's that same conversation. They don't love it and it sucks. And I hate having it. It's not fun until you bring them an offer that they're happy with in the end, right? Figuring out what is really important to them. Timeline, money, transaction type, ease, whatever it may be. I think that's a huge one. But I think it's having the conversation early and often, I think is what I've had really good success with. Anyone else?
We have something called when a seller chooses you to be their agent and they've stated, yeah, we want you to be our agent. And that's the height of the relationship in a shifting market. Because if they don't get what they wanted right away, we call it the hate-o-meter. And that literally from that point that they list, they see their photos online, they get all this, buzz and attractive, clicks and so forth, and maybe quite a few showings, hopefully. And then every day that it doesn't sell, the hate-o-meter starts getting heavier and heavier and heavier. And then they start quasi asking like, what are you doing to not sell my house, right? And so I think that those conversations haven't really been had in a long time. And, like Gary always says that, we get really lazy in a great market for listings selling quickly. But really, like you were all saying earlier, managing those expectations and allowing for that hate-o-meter. One of the ways that we've kind of counteracted that is, I remember doing this in 2010. At the bottom of the market, things had average days on market just astronomical. And what we ended up doing was incorporating the seller's social media into our marketing campaign. And so what we did is we allowed for, if they allowed us to, we say, hey, by the way, about 10 to 20% of all homes that sell are sold to someone that the seller might have already known through 1 or 2 levels of connection. And so we would love to make sure that all the relationships you have online, and again, there's a lot of sellers that object to this, but the ones that are willing to do it, I think is an incredible way to incorporate their social media. You post on for them, you provide them everything to post, but through your marketing and so forth, but you allow for them to be able to take advantage of your marketing on their social media. And then you're incorporating the sellers into what's being done. And therefore it's a team approach rather than you're doing it. You're not selling my house. Well, if we're doing it together, then it's a we rather than a you.
I think it's going back to the thing of, actually doing your job, right? Like,
Yep.
everybody could do an absolutely terrible job, list the house, and they had offers on it, right? Now, actually being the expert that we all claim to be and that we all promise to be, actually stepping up and doing that. What does that mean, right? Whether that's marketing through them, with them, partnering with them on anything, open houses, whatever it may be, whatever your specialty is on it. I think it's actually getting back to the activities that are tried and true.
I think it starts with self-education because a shifted market is a skill-based market, and it also a shifted market exposes you, right? So to your point, Josh, I mean, if you don't know what the market's doing, then how can you really set proper expectations, right? Our sales price to original price is shifted backwards in the first time in 8 months, but this has happened before, right? So and our market's actually moving faster for those that know it, right? But you just have to price to the motivation of the market and the motivation to sell it, right? I mean, we listed one, our team listed one on Friday because we got a kick-out clause and we were able to get it under contract within 48 hours. But I had to walk in the door with a seller wanting to list it 225 when in all actuality, for her motivation, 200 was our number and we had to get her there, right? So if you don't know how to have those conversations and use the data to have them, then you're not going to be able to set the effective expectations on the front end.
I think as far as listings are concerned, you've got to have standards based around what your listing is. And, you know, we have those set really, really high. So whenever someone goes on a listing appointment on our team, the expectation is set, like, this is our number, but this is your number. We can try this number. And we have a set number of showings, which if we have this many showings and no offers, then we're doing a price reduction, or if it's a time frame. And we're very, very clear on what that is. And we get that signed up front that if we're doing a price reduction on this date, if we have not have something. And we get the change price already signed. So, and then as far as like pricing, you've got to always price in front of the market. And so we're not just looking at the sold comps anymore. We're looking at what the competition is, because the actives are what's going to make the decisions of, you know, how you're going to purchase.
Doing an actual MLS search in front of your seller and actually showing them what they're, hey, you're every 3 2 and Ozark. Are you gonna buy your house or that house, right? You're wanting to list 10 grand more than this house that's updated or whatever it may be, right? Or school district or whatever.
Well, and you're getting back to the point of actives are the ones that are selling it. Fondly and Ethel Curvo used to, they go to lunch every Thursday. They still do. They have their like entire real estate career. But they literally, they price against each other and they show each other's listings, and that's how they sell each other's stuff so much. They'll use your active listing to sell my house.
Oh, for sure.
That's what they do.
That's right. Well, when you show your seller the 4 homes that sold that weren't theirs, that's a big thing to state in front of them. When you're literally, you know, these are the 4 homes. Remember when we talked initially, this is where we felt like the market is. And you can see that these other homes were chosen and yours weren't because of where we're listed. And now is the time to take advantage, to get sexy again. Let's adjust the price to this point and get back ahead of the market.
Right, because there's options now, right?
Yeah.
It's always a supply demand issue. And we're seeing that there's now more inventory on the market than there has been since June of 2020. So the first time that we're almost equal as far as like the amount of houses that are on the market and that are coming on the market. And so when people have more choices, they're gonna have more pushback. And so it's just like, you know, you go and you buy a car, there's all different categories of a car. Well, this one's got leather seats, this one has remote control, this one has this one has this. They look the same, but you can get this one $15,000 cheaper. What are people gonna go for? And so whenever people have more options, the buyers push back, and that's where we are.
Yeah.
Adam was saying the other day, he's like, our market basically is like, you know, we're going 70 miles an hour down the highway instead of 90.
That's right.
Like, that's it. That's the only change.
So, at a buyer, we were in a contract and there needed to be like this, like significant foundation issues, the roof needed replaced and bigger things. For the first time in a very long time, my buyer just looked at me and said, I'll just find another one. And there was no fear, there was no like, what am I gonna do? And she's on a time frame. She was just like, I'll find another one.
I'm like loving it. Like,
I was like,
we're
this is
negotiating.
awesome.
We're negotiating. Like, I've been dying for this for like 18 months. Like, I got a house like
100%.
$40,000 off. I negotiated $60,000 down this past week. I mean, we're asking for closing costs.
Yep.
There is no appraisal gap. I don't know what you're talking about.
So good.
And no, we're not limiting inspections.
That's right.
We're back.
That's right.
It's like we get to be
My
buyer's
agents
agents
are
again.
happy.
It's
I
fantastic.
know, that's the attitude you all want to understand, is when people say, oh, how's the market? I've heard it's shifting. It's like, yeah, it's great. And they go, oh, you're the first person that said that. So many agents are doom and gloom about it. You've heard Mike and I talking in the team meetings. This is great, you guys. There's so much good that can come from this. And it is choice, and it's a variety. It's so nice. When there's an equalization of a market, it feels so healthy. That's really helpful all around. It really is.
I think something we have to remember too, there's not a lot of people having these conversations, right? Of being proactive and learning.
Yep.
There's not a lot of other places where they're getting this many high producers in a room together to talk either together to the rest of the market center or anything of that nature about strategies of how to win and what to prepare your sellers and buyers for. To where, to Carrie's point, you have another agent who they've been on the market for 5 days, their seller's having a panic attack the seller's agent's having a panic attack too.
Yeah.
And when you bring them an offer 50, 60 grand under, they're like, oh, thank God, right? Like, we're able to get it done now, right? They're looking at it like it's a good thing, to where if you called me and said, hey, my client's not happy, they're gonna bring this offer, I've already had that conversation. Not a lot of people have though,
Yeah.
right? And as a buyer's agent right now, you have to realize that's a good thing, right? And as a seller's agent, it means that you need to be the one that's educating your person from the beginning, to where they're not dying for that $60,000 under asking offer and so happy about getting it, or let's just say 10% below asking, right? Who knows what the price point was, but like, let's just say 10% under, right? Like, that was a crazy idea 2 months ago.
I was thinking, Josh, the last time we had this meeting, the whole meeting was about how are we gonna get our offers accepted over everybody else's, was it not?
Yeah, and that was
Look
2
at
months
how
ago. We
quickly-
did meet last month.
Isn't that amazing?
And to that point, as listings and listing agents, you really have to do your job and do the good pictures and do everything needs to be done. I just put one in our contract for McKinsey and Brandon.
Oh, yeah.
Josh, and we came in 40,000 under. It was the worst listing that I've ever seen. It was cell phone pictures, literally a finger in the picture. Haven't seen that in years. And, you
As a
know,
buyer's agent, you're like, I'm okay with
I
that.
know, I was like, this is horrible. Nobody's gonna come see this. And this is a lake home. This is a lake home that you walk,
Those agents.
I mean, where it's mowed to the grass and walk down to. And it was the most horrible. We came in 40 under and we got it.
That figure cost them 10 grand.
At least, at least. But just as, I mean, it used to be that would happen and you'd still have 6 offers. That you didn't have to, you know.
Our investment properties that we list, because we have a ton of awful ones that we get to work with for some reason. Gotta love them. They, like, we would post one photo of them and you would get multiple offers because supply and demand. Right? Now you're doing a little bit more work even on those. Right? So you're 100% correct. You have to do your job now. What other strategy are people having success with, or somebody that's struggling, right? They may have, maybe still losing multiple offers, or maybe still, having clients that are stuck in a different reality. What are some conversations you're having a hard time with?
I think it just depends on the price point, because I mean, what the average price point now is around $250 for a first-time home buyer. And it's still, I think it's still a challenge to get those accepted, not as hard. Now, we're not going 20, 30,000 over waiving, appraisals, but I'm still seeing multiple offers even around that 250 to 300. But I do think for my clients that have been selling and buying, it's becoming a little easier. So that conversation, so now I'm like, going back to the people that, we're scared that, okay, we're gonna sell our house, we're gonna get top dollar, but what are we gonna buy? So now I'm going back to those people that I maybe, talked to 6 months ago where that was like almost impossible. And just going back, and I think it's gonna be easier to even we're seeing contingency offers accepted. So like Tim said, I mean, it's not a bad thing. It's,
I think, I was joking earlier about the lenders, right? Everyone's getting their calls from their lenders that they've used in the past, right? We need to have those conversations. Somebody mentioned it earlier about like waking up the buyers that were like, hey, I'm holding off, right? Like they're freaking out, they're having a panic attack. A lot of it's emotional. Sometimes you can teach and help them learn past the emotion. Sometimes you can't because they're just not going to come through it. I think now you've got that opportunity, right? Especially right now, rates just dropped again for a split second. Who knows how long it'll stay that way, right? But things aren't as scary as when they were at 6.25 or whatever.
But having those conversations that the interest rate that they see on TV is not necessarily the interest rate.
Right.
Oh, it's going up. Everything's crazy.
That's right.
No, it's really not.
And I've got clients that like today I was talking to them. They're like, hey, we're waiting till the end of the year. They told me that. I already know that. But I'm not going to let somebody else jump in their ear during that time, right? I'm not forgetting about them. I'm not letting them go because
I would script around that, right?
Oh, for sure.
I mean, so
This was
what
because
about
of
the end of the
vendor.
year
That
is
was the
important to
great
you?
one.
Yeah, but what if I could show you a way that if I were to
100%.
take you over and we could do a 5-1 arm or a 10-1 arm,
Mhm.
and I can actually get you down a whole point?
Yep.
We can ask for closing costs and that can actually buy down the interest rate even further. I mean, there's so many solutions even in these interest rates. I mean, it's not that big of a deal.
No, and that's, I think, part of the issue too, or not part of the issue, but part of the thing is like making sure you're working with a lender that can also convey that message, because you still have some that are
Well,
not doing great.
but not everybody can convey that message
No.
because not everybody has the
Has the
products
option,
to be able to do it.
100%.
So you have to make sure that like, yes, you've got your secondary mortgage market lender, but you've got an in-house lender that can handle the buy downs, that can handle the arms and everything else, because not every lender is created the same.
And
It's
just,
just like buying vacation properties and having someone say, well, it's an unwarranted property, and the lender flip out and be like, this is a terrible investment. Well, no, it's just you don't offer that product.
Yeah.
And there's 9 million other lenders that do. And so if I take you over here, it's a great investment. It's just what somebody offers versus the other.
yeah, and I think that, just like agents, there's a lot of lenders that flooded into the business as well because things were easy, right? There's a lot of people buying and selling, rates were really great. It was really easy for them to make product, but they were, just like we were talking about, there's a lot of training, a lot of actually high skill as we're going into this market. Make sure you're in business with the right ones too. Make sure you're in partnership with the right ones. There's plenty of really good ones out there. There's also plenty of them.
Speaking about lenders calling you all the time, I have a great script that I've told to some of you, I'm sure, but this just gets them off your back immediately or makes them work for your business. And so I would just say when the lender calls you and they're like, hey, I want to get together, let's get lunch, let's talk business. I'd like to show you our products, how we could increase your business, whatever. And you just go, hey, that sounds awesome. I love that. And I, appreciate the call. You know what? I have a standard whenever I'm working with when I'm working with a new lender, I want to make sure you bring the first client and then I'll give you 2. And if they do a great job, then they've earned the right to potentially work with my clients. But if they're not real and they just want to grow their business, if they're going to land a whale, they need to show up. I want you to bring me the client, and they know how well we do our stuff. But I love that line because number one, it gets them to shut up if they're not real. And number 2, I offer them an opportunity to bring me a client. And so I would say that is a great way for you to be like, hey, I love that. Thank you so much for the call. You know what? I have a standard working with my lenders. And if you bring me the first client, then I'll return that. If you do a great job, I'll give you 2 in return.
Right there, you find out who's making that call to 50 other agents. And
That's exactly right.
And there's a lot of them that are, and that's fine. I don't care.
And it works
We've got a
immediately.
partnership. Go ahead, Tim.
I've got a buyer right now that's buying a property for investment to rent, and their lender is over 6%. So if anybody has a lender they want to recommend to me, I've got a buyer that's actively looking right now to finance a property we're under contract with, so.
Who's their lender?
I know.
I have no idea. That's because I wouldn't work with them. They called me up and said, hey, do you have any lenders? Half an hour ago, because my lender's over 6% on this.
Have you talked to State Bank at all? I would call
Give me
State
name.
Bank, Tiffany Nichols. She's the
Will you text me?
president over there.
I'll text you, Tim.
She's really good.
Thanks.
And State Bank, sorry.
Yeah.
State Bank, they do a lot of in-house stuff, and they have ways of, underwriters are in-house too. So they have ways that they can configure things and change things on paper for it to make sense.
Versatility, huge. The creativity, like Carrie was saying, is really crucial at this point. And especially, I think going further into this, once we're into October, December area, it's gonna get, you want that creativity big time.
I think it's kind of funny when you see, whether it's national groups or whatever, but agents are talking about like they just bought a house on an arm, but they don't necessarily like give that knowledge to their buyers. It's like,
I've moved so many people over,
yeah, it's like,
especially with like new construction.
like
I assume it's a 30-year fixed.
I've worked with plenty of people that's the conversation, right? Like that's the conversation of, I can't afford a 6% or whatever it may be. And that conversation quickly changes, and I'm not the one that's gonna have every detail of every program, but I've got lenders that are really, really good at it, right? And I know I can have the conversation, at least let them have a 5, 10, 15-minute conversation that'll turn into a sit down, that'll turn into something where a buyer feels confident working with a certain lender. And then if you do that, you not only earn yourself that business, but you can darn well guarantee you that you're one of the few people that are having that conversation with your clients and connecting them with a lender that is as well, you're gonna get repercussions for it in a good way.
So one thing that was really big, this was, Carrie, you taught a class of relics, or you were a speaker of relics that was fairly new, I think, to KW. So one thing that was really big for me was realizing that you have a system or you have a script that you're using and you're doing, but if you can't write that down right now, all the stuff that we're saying, you're like, how can you implement any changes that we're actually making? Because as stuff is shifting, it is, when we're talking about it, you can't go and like remove a line or add a line. Like, you're just gonna be spinning in circles. And like, that was one huge takeaway for me. Like, as all this is happening, it's like, oh, if I hadn't done this, this would be a nightmare for me right now.
Yeah, I print out this, it sounds so stupid, but a lot of stuff that I do is weird. But I print everything out in groups of 20. And every time I have to reprint it, I relook at it and say, what is the question that I'm constantly asking that's not on here, or what is on here that needs to be removed and replaced? And so it's constantly making me tweak my systems based off of how the business is changing, or the questions that are being asked, or the lending programs that we're doing. But, you know, we get so stuck in our ways, and it's like you all of a sudden look at a thing and you're like, this thing is a dinosaur. Like, this doesn't, it's not relevant now, right? I'm asking the wrong questions and I'm getting in the same place. So but I do that. I reprint it every time, and then I look at it and I make adjustments. I mean, all the
How many
time.
times I've like screenshot a conversation with a client and like send it to Sam. He's like, hey, can you put this on my checklist or my buyers or listing appointment or consult checklist? Because you're like, man, I've answered this question 3 times in the last week, or I've asked this question and it's not here. The only reason I'm asking it now is because it wasn't on mine. And you do, if it's not written down, if it's not documented, you're just chasing your tail, trying to remember what you've done and said. And it does, to be very, very clear, this does not need to be like the most glamorous thing in the world, right? It can be your 10 questions that you ask every time, right? And then it'll evolve from there, but it's got to start written down in some way. And as you ask something, or as somebody asks you a question, I don't remember who it was. It's either you or Jen or somebody when I first started out, they said that any opportunity when somebody asks you a question because they weren't informed of it, something simple, right? Like, you 2 weeks into a contract, someone says, when's closing date? You're like, holy crap, I just apparently haven't been very good at informing them of this, right? It becomes a new point in your checklist. It becomes a new step before that time. So I'm 14 days in and they asked me when closing was at 7 days, I need to remind them. Obviously they knew when we wrote the contract because we discussed it. 7 days later, I need to remind them so they can have movers planned. It can be something as simple as that, or it can be whatever question about school districts that you forget to ask all of your buyers, or whatever it may be. So again, anytime somebody asks you a question, or anytime that you're surprised by something, it needs to be added to your checklist or to your consult or to anything like that. I think that's huge. I don't remember who said it.
Josh, the way that I always heard it, and I think this was several years ago in a mastermind, is every question from a client is a failure in your systems.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Every question, he said, every question that you're asked is only a failure in your systems for not already having that question answered.
And the reason that that's important is that they're feeling uncomfortable enough to actually dial you and feel like they know they're interrupting you. That's how uncomfortable they are to call you on that.
One of my least favorite things that I've done is when a client calls me, like, hey, I haven't heard from you in a while. I'm like, well, did I tell you that the next time I would call you was this time? And if I didn't, that's my failure or my system messed up, right? Every single phone call of mine is setting expectations for when our next communication is going to be. Whether that's, to them, a while may be a day. To them, a while may be 2 weeks. Some listings, people don't ever want to hear from you unless they have a showing or a contract, right? Yep. But setting the expectation, having the system, to Brian's point, right? It's not a failure, because you get them under contract, you call them and say congrats. Hey, my next phone call will be on Monday because it's Friday night. When I schedule your inspection, I will let you know when it is, right? Whatever that may be, who cares what the conversation is, but just ending your call with, or your text conversation, however you're communicating with these people, in a expectation of what is going to happen next, what they will see next, whatever that may be, whether it's big, small.
And having the conversation of just, okay, how do you want me to communicate with you, and how often do you want me to communicate? Like,
I get all the time, somebody asks me a question, I'm like, well, yeah, I sent this, well, yeah, you sent me 15 emails that day.
Yeah, I missed it.
You know, because, you know, when somebody goes on their contract, it's, here's when your inspection is, here's when this is, here's when your earnest money,
Timeline.
everything in there. And they're like, yeah, there were so many of them, I didn't even read it. Okay, that's a problem if I'm sending you 7 or 8 emails in one day and you're like, I'm not reading those.
Yeah.
So.
I had a client just recently, they didn't work well with one of our buyer's agents because they wanted to be communicated differently, right? And it's like, all right, cool. They changed their communication style, it was great. But it was only because the system wasn't followed to have that conversation, right? How do you want to be communicated with? I can work within reason, right? But I want to know what works best for you, right? So I want to take it to I want you to be running it.
I, for some reason, have like an exorbitant amount of clients that are over 80 for some reason.
What's that say about that?
They're like, I'm like, I texted you. I don't know.
With elder abuse.
It's just weird though, because they never want to text. It's always a phone call, you know, and then usually it's a text and call them, hey, check your text message because I send it to you in writing, you know, what it is. But it's just, it's a different.
Yeah, by the time the sun goes down.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and they'll also call me at 6 a.m. and think that that's normal.
We just closed on one for clients that wouldn't allow showings after 6 p.m. Which is really hard, right? I think most people work. So they would not allow showings after 6 p.m. because it was supper time, and then after supper, they watched whatever show, and then they would go to bed. And I'm like, I've got a guy who's been in this house, missed out on the last time it was for sale, when you guys bought it a year ago. He wants to buy it, just wants to make sure you didn't ruin it. He's coming at 6:30, right? And they're like, I don't know. He didn't buy the house, so it worked out okay, but I'm like, oh my gosh.
So that brings up a really good question. So as I said, past 4 years have been awesome, but still fairly new. So we're getting back to the market I started in. So I still feel very good, but if it keeps going, with all the new agents that have joined, so that right there was not the agent managing the client, that was the market that's been managing the client. How many agents should we expect to leave? How nasty is the hey, we've got a client that's ready to buy, and they're like, yeah, we'll just get to it when we get to it. It's I would rather you didn't, and we get it done now. Do you guys have a number for that? Or is it just, we're just gonna truck through this and be like, oh, you're miserable?
A lot of that's gonna depend on what the market's like through December and January.
Yeah.
Okay, why is that?
Because that's when dues are due.
Oh, okay, so
So you know that a market's shifting whenever everybody gets in, right? I mean, that's the number one lead indicator. And Gary Keller said in a mastermind 3 or 4 weeks ago, there was 1 million people currently in real estate school.
Right.
And in the state of Florida right now, there's 12 agents for every 1 listing that's even available. So, I mean, I personally have already know 12 people that have gotten their real estate license and they're already out. And it was a 3-month deal. So, people don't realize that this business is really hard. And, people have become lazy based off of the market and what we've been able to do. And so you put a house on the market, you do the 3 Ps, you put it on the market, put it on the MLS, put a sign in the yard, and you pray, and you get 15 offers. And now everybody's freaking out. I mean, I read everybody's stuff on social media and people are like, I put something on the market, what do I do? Nobody knows how to be an agent. And, I love it. I'm like, let's wait till January 1, mass exit. So,
right.
I remember in 2007, 2008, and I remember when you got your license, but,
There's 35 to 40 houses to show a buyer, and they were all 30 to 150 days on market.
Yeah.
I mean,
there was a mass entrance and a mass exit.
2018, if you had a listing that was on the market for 30 days or less, you're pretty bummed. I was 30 days. Bad. That was pretty solid, right?
Oh yeah, we used to sign 6 months listings and be like, okay, so you've been on the market 4 months.
You might need to do an extension.
You might need to do a reduction.
Yeah. But it was just I
didn't know anything less than a year.
No. And it wasn't that it wasn't necessarily oh, you priced it wrong. It was just that there was a lot of competition unless this person was in a hurry, right, to sell it. They needed, their motivation outweighed the others, right? Then it was just, they hung out for 3-4 months and they might do a $3,000-$4,000 price reduction on a $200,000 house, and it got something done to where we've not been used to that recently. I mean, it's gonna be good to go back for it. It'll also, Jan 1 will scare a lot of people away, I think. Oh, sorry.
I had a few days ago, actually a few weeks ago, that I showed a buyer 4 houses in the same day. I was like, I can't remember when the last time that there were 4 houses available to show the same buyer. And, it's just such a different, and it used to be, oh, we got 1. Can you go right now? Yes.
There's agents that probably don't know how to schedule. That is one of the questions that somebody asked earlier. One of the questions somebody asked earlier is like, how can I go back and get these other buyers that went through what we went through before and reinvigorate? It's like, look, hey, I remember when there was only 1 house to show you, and now we've got multiple options for you. I showed 4 houses to 1 buyer yesterday. They're like, what? No way. That is a way to definitely draw that back out.
There are hundreds of agents in our area that don't remember like trying to schedule 5 showings out and going, all right, I need 10 minutes for driving, 5 minutes for them to talk about this house longer than they really needed to, but they're going to anyways. All right, so I need to budget 15 minutes between this, and then I need 20 minutes to walk through. I mean, like, that wasn't.
Just
spend half your day doing that, and half your day showing the house.
Well, around doing like Google Maps, and you could put them in there and tell you what the best route was.
Yeah, I mean, like, that was miserable back then, and we're going right back to it. To Doug's point, you had 4 in a day. That's gonna become common, thank goodness.
So the book Shift was actually written in a buyer's market. Like, that's the whole point of Shift. So, I mean, you can go back and read it. And I mean, I've read it so many times. We just got done reading it as a team again. But, it just changes, right? Like, if you stay foundational and do the 5 things that you're supposed to do every single day and lead generate and get into habit and be foundational, nothing changes with your business. It's the people that are running the EKG of their business. They grab a buyer, they run with them, they put them under contract, and then they don't have any business going on. So if you stay foundational and do your lead generation like you're supposed to and stay on top of that, then you shouldn't have any blips. In the past 2 years, we've recalibrated our buyers. And I know I talk about my spreadsheets and all that kind of stuff. And an A buyer became someone who is ready, willing, and willing to do whatever it takes, right? And then the B buyer is someone who's ready, willing, and able. And then a C buyer is someone who's ready, willing, and just not at a time frame. And then anybody else needs to be with an ISA, right? If you don't have an ISA department, you are the ISA, which means you have to lead generate to keep them back in, because 80% of your final, like, getting closings is through nurture, follow-up, right? That's the most important thing. And so we are now just recalibrating our buyers to the people that are ready, willing, and able again. And they're not having to do whatever it takes. But then we're getting back with our people that were last year, 6 months out, and everything else, and just letting them know what's going on, right? Because they're going to come back in. They are a buyer. They are going to transact. It's just, are you going to be the person that they decide to do it with? Are you the one that's following up and nurturing them and staying in front of them? So that whenever they go to the open house, they're not transacting with somebody else. So
to add on to that one scene, because I'm kind of the new guy. So like when you talk about when something shifts, then you've got, obviously you can capture market share. That makes a ton of sense because agents leave. Is there anything else on top of that? So like, is there something else you can do to capture more besides like your standard, just lead generate, do the foundational things? Because you should be doing that always. So it shouldn't be anything that changes. Is there anything that like does change with that? Does that make sense?
not necessarily. I feel like if you're staying in and doing foundational, but I mean, like, look at what's happening. Like, nobody's doing open houses. Like, those have kind of like gone away. We've all created like, you know, through COVID, I mean, that even happened. But like, we're seeing realtor opens again. Like, what? That's just crazy. So, you know, I think that just doing the things to continue to bring you the business is the most important thing. Just lead generate.
I'm excited to like have the opportunity to put a listing up on Friday and be able to host an open house on a Sunday. Because I mean, like,
right.
And not to mention, I'm so glad that there's so many people that are looking at this as a career, if they treat it that way. But I'm also annoyed by every single person who gets in it because their buddy wants to buy a house and it's easy, they're gonna make a little bit of money. And that person walks into the open house and says, I have an agent. They don't have an agent, they have a friend who happens to have the real estate license. It's gonna do an awful job for them, right? It's gonna be horrible. Now they get to run into an expert at the open house, whoever that may be, right? Somebody in this room that's hosting an open house that is an expert of the market, an expert of the real estate transaction, right? They're gonna be able to, that client is actually gonna have a fiduciary now, not a friend. And I hate to keep saying it, but I'm not upset that a lot of people are gonna get out of there. And it's because it's not the people that got in to make a career out of it, right? It's those who got in because it looked like fun. And to Carrie's point, it's not a lot of fun always. I think it's a lot of fun, but it's not just easy, right? It's not as sexy and glamorous as you know, a lot of people make it.
I remember a new agent got his license. This was probably like in 2017, and I was down at the tech room at the old building. And he was like, oh, I'm so excited, I got this under contract. And he was like, what do I do next? And I was like, well, you need to do this, you do this, you do this, you do this, and this, and this, and this, 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 this. And he was just like,
Glaze over.
he was like, wait, I have to do all of that? And I was like, yeah. And then you gotta get another one and put it under contract and get another buyer and make them happy.
Dan Holt?
Not Dan. Not Dan.
One of my first conversations with anybody was Carrie. Wes and I were kind of like, we were friends. He was out of town on vacation. And I had 2 listings come up and I had no clue what to do. Like I'd been lead generating my SOI before, like as I'd got my license before I'd actually started like really actively working because I was finishing my other job. And started with KW, get these listings. I'm like, to Carrie's point, what the heck do I do now? It's like, I don't have a clue what to do. And I just started knocking on doors at the old office and finally like ran into Carrie. Carrie was lead generating or lead follow-up. I think actually you're talking to a friend and you're like, give me 15 minutes. I've got a 15-minute break. I'll come help you. And truthfully, like, first of all, ask the question, right? To your point, Don said, ask the question. Like, text me, Facebook me, I don't care. If I can help you, if I have the time, I'll make sure I help because I know how much that benefited me. First of all. Second of all, like, you ask the questions not only to your people that you work with, but you're asking the question to your clients. You're asking the question, like, be question-based because then you're able to actually help them out by learning, by growing, right? And Carrie, that 15 minutes was huge because I literally had no clue what to do. Wes was like, call these people. I'm going on vacation. Did not expect anything to happen. Yeah, did not expect much to happen. But like I get these listings and I'm like, I got an appointment. Wes is in Hawaii. I'm like, I don't know what to do here, right? And I think, no, you didn't. You were the first person to show that house though, right? Like she used it as a benefit to her. She helped me out for 15 minutes and then she took one of her buyers like, maybe this is a deal. Maybe this is the perfect house for him. So, you know, it can definitely be a win-win. So
You
definitely
touched on something really important, and then I think Austin had something to say.
Yeah.
Leveraging our listings, it becomes really cool at this point, in my opinion. Everybody should hold every listing accountable for another buyer and another listing. I'm telling you, it is true. It's when you actually change the way you market your property. If you're target marketing, you're looking for buyers for your property, right? If their open houses become fun again because you, right?
It's not fun to sit in an open house for 2 hours and see 30 people walk through with
That's
their
right.
agent.
And as agents do start to dwindle away, the ones that aren't purposeful, the ones that are like, what do I do now? They get out. They aren't being taught this stuff. So
And to that point, it's not the people that are sitting in this room. It's not the people that come to trainings. It's not the people that are digging in, right? That's not, when we're talking about like people getting out, it's people that just don't want to pay $2,500 because they just don't care, right? If you're not just this training by any stretch of the imagination, anything in the office, whether it's Ignite, whether it's Bold, whether it's Mega or Family, whatever it may be, whether it's team meeting and, you know, whatever, anything, right? Anytime there's a training going on or you see a conversation of people actually talking about the market, talking about what's going on, like it's okay to dive into it. Like that's how you're going to be successful, whether it's you're brand new or you're seasoned. Like Carrie doesn't need to come down here necessarily to hear everything that's being said, right? She may write one thing down on her pad that was worth her hour to be down here, right? But that one thing is why you keep coming down here, right? It's why I enjoy doing it. Selfishly, I'm not doing it, just for everybody. Like, I'm gonna take one thing out of this, right? And it may be a reminder, something you knew about, but you're gonna take one thing away. And to that point, like, I don't wanna scare anybody that is a newer agent in here. Like, when we say people are gonna get out, it's the people that are not in these conversations, or not willing, or not wanting, or not, not diving into this. Like, this office is training based and learning based for a reason. This office will take market share, right, as an agent count because of that, right? Who's been in for less than a year? You're right? Okay, so.
Well, I guess I came up on my year this month, so.
You're out.
Woohoo.
What was your name?
Abby?
Abby, okay. So Abby's gonna be successful because she's diving into this. And then Abby's friends that are at other offices or not in real estate at all, right? They're gonna come here because they're gonna say, hey, Abby, what happened? Like, how were you so successful? You're like, our office has nonstop training, right? Like, nonstop. When you started out, you can be in so many trainings that you're not doing the business, right? Like, for me, it used to be like, when I first started,
Yes.
you start through Ignite. Like, when I started, Ignite just happened to be starting. And it was like, okay, I'm gonna lead generate, lead follow-up, and you go to the training classes.
Right.
And then it was like, the next day, it was the same thing. But I mean, it works, right? Because you're learning and then you're doing the activities. So.
Gabby just
Keep that in
helped me get a recruit from one of our main competitors, it's Blue. And that was exactly why she's coming. She's like, I feel like I've done the training there and it's always the same thing and there's nothing new. And it's literally, I need better than this.
Yeah, so keep that in mind too. I mean, like, this is gonna be, as a market center, we're gonna take market share because our market center is training and learning based, right? You've got agents that are diving in.
What I was gonna say, going back to, you actually touched on part of it, and it was going towards what you were saying too. I feel like lead generation is actually going to become easier for agents.
Yes.
As we're shifting, because it's like when we first started, we would sit in my shoebox and we would call for hours, expired listings, canceled listings, and we still pick up business 4 years later from that. Going into a market where we will see expired listings because agents have priced the property too high and people are fed up with their agent, that's opening up opportunities for other people to step in, educate, and then pull that business and gain that market share. And same thing with what you said about leveraging our listings. When I first got started, I can remember doing like 3 open houses in a weekend, one from 11 to 1, another from 2 to 4, and then another one on Sunday from 2 to 4.
Yeah.
Because I was eager to like get out there and find that. Now that homes aren't selling as quickly, I'm gonna be able to stockpile and stack my open houses again. And instead of having one opportunity on a Sunday twice a month to generate business, now I have each weekend, twice a weekend or 4 times a weekend to get in front of more people. So I don't think that anybody who's afraid to work, I don't think there's fear that the business isn't going to be there. I think the business is always there. It's like now we just have to spend more time going out there to get it and leverage, our abilities as best as we can to just find as many people to talk to. Because it was a contact sport. I remember when I was on the team and they were training me, I was like, well, how do I get business? It's a contact sport and it's all about the number of people because for every 10 no's, there's 1 yes.
Right.
Well, doing 1 open house a weekend, I may only see 5 people. That's not enough to get me a yes. So now there's gonna be that opportunity that we haven't had for the past 2 years to really go out, grab more people and bring them in.
I think you were talking about expireds and having more opportunity. I don't remember the number, but January 1, our ISAs, and I know your guys do too, every year, pull up the expireds. Don't know why. People have them expire at the end of the year. Doesn't make sense to me. It never has, but it is.
Well, it's because we used to do year listings.
I know, but
6-month listings.
you didn't take those listings on just January 1.
Just say, we're just gonna
We're
do
gonna go
it.
till
We're
the- I
gonna
know.
expire
I know, it was-
December 31st. I'm
I
not
get it.
kidding. That's
I
the
know,
thing.
it was just weird to me. It never made sense to me because I've never came in that market, so I get it. But this year, I think there was like, I called Denver and I was like, hey, can I help you guys out? Like, I've got some time I'd like to call. And he's like, there's 12.
Yeah, I was gonna say, there's like
And they were all lots.
28 listings.
Yeah, there was like nothing. And it was like, all right.
They expire at the end of every month too. So, I mean, I still, to this day,
Oh, yeah.
through our program, I'll log in and see how many expireds we had on the 30th or 31st of the month.
Yep.
For the past 2 years, it's been like 30, 40. When I first got started, it would be like 100 or 200 that expired at the end or beginning of the month.
Well, and that's because I do that, because I don't want to count what 180 days is if I'm taking the 6-month
Yeah.
listing. So it's like, okay,
I just,
it's April, so
Okay,
that's
say
the
11.
4th month.
I just go to like
So
another number.
10 months,
11.
the end of the 10th month is when this is, gonna go. So it might be, 6 months and 10 days or something, because I don't want to do that to figure out where it's at. But I think the other thing that it's gonna change, we just had a meeting this morning and talked about it, is that we'll get more efficient in what we're doing. Because in the last year, it's like, oh, shoot, I lost that buyer. Well, I got 8 more behind me. It's no big deal. And so now it's like, ooh, I lost that one. That cost me money. I need to,
Yeah.
that's, for me at least, it's like, okay, every single
I mean,
person.
And for a lot of buyers, just drained you, not on the amount of showings you're doing, but on the amount of offers you're writing.
Right.
And that's exhausting mentally. So you lose when you're like, lost the money, but my average price point's up, right? Or you just get lazy, to your point. You're just getting lazy. Carrie said, when it comes back to prospecting, read the book if you haven't. It's a phenomenal book. Go for No. I go back to that with my our IHA department. We call them in-house agents on our team. So our ISA OSAs. That's the biggest thing I go for. I'll talk to, I'll walk in one day and Hunter's like, it's 10 o'clock and I'm like, how's the day going? He's like, oh, good, I got 3 appointments. First of all, great freaking job.
Yeah.
Second of all, I've seen you walking around the office and hanging out, not doing anything for like an hour and a half. Like, you've hit your quota of appointments. You haven't hit your quota of contacts. So you haven't hit your quota of no's, to Austin's point, which means you're just leaving food on the table. Like, you're in that day. Like, I sold cars for like just a short period of time before I couldn't take the culture anymore. But, I could not take that culture. It was not for me. But like the day you sold one, like first thing, like somebody just happened to roll up, was the day you sold 3 or 4. Because like you just happened to be in that group that day. Stars aligned right, you got the perfect amount of sleep, whatever it may be.
The momentum that's created from that.
And then Uncle Mo is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, momentum is big. So the book Go for No is right on that. Talks about the salesman, makes a sale, and then he stops calling and what it does for his business. So really, it's when it comes to prospecting, we're reading Fanatical Prospecting right now. Go for No is another really great book. So if you're getting back into that, go on it.
If anybody likes Audible, it's on Audible for only $4.86, and it's only an hour and a half long.
If anybody wants it on Audible, I'll gift you 1 credit because I have a bunch that I keep forgetting. First person to say me, I'll take it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not you.
Dang it.
I have a physical copy.
I'll see if let me see if I can figure out how to do that.
Paulina.
If not, I can front the 40.
So, just following up with what Blake said, so this is my 4th year in real estate. And I mean, I'm not gonna say I didn't work my butt off because I did, but over the last year, I'm seeing more repeat business, referrals from past clients. And so I mean, I'm super guilty of like not lead generating as much as I can. And now I'm kind of like going into this panic mode and I'm like, I don't know what's gonna happen. Like I got into it in 2019 when like it just started taking off. So, I mean, did I get lucky? Maybe a little bit. Like I said, I still worked very hard, but I've gotten away from like my regular lead generate, lead follow-up because those are our 2 most important jobs, right? So like, I'm like, okay, what am I gonna do? Like, how am I gonna get business? So my plan is just to go back to the basics and I mean, doing open houses, calling people. So Monday through Friday, what we would do is just call people 9 till 11. We're just calling people, not answering any calls. I mean, it's just straight lead generate, lead follow up.
So you mentioned like you built roughly how many closes have you had You're like few hundred, right?
For
Like 400-ish, somewhere,
my entire
Yeah.
career,
400,
yeah,
somewhere in there, right?
mid threes.
So you've got you one have a database of your, let's call it 350, right? So you had 350 clients that are closings, right? You also have the other side of it too, if you sold those homes, right? To where now you have another, or you were the seller that was there. Reach back out to that person and say, hey, this house is great. Don't know what your relationship is as your agent. Has nothing to do with that listing. See if they still love the house, right? No harm, no foul. But your lead generate doesn't always have to be cold. Like my lead generation now is very rarely cold. It's almost always and only my top 100. Now,
Top what?
my top 100. So I've got 100 people that I call and text, annoy on Facebook, shoot them random Instagram reels that I think are funny. Like they're just my top 100 I stay in contact with because they refer me business. They are business. They know other people that they don't necessarily refer me to, but they might tag me in a post or they might do anything, right? But they're my top 100. And I don't generally do anything that's cold except for open houses because I don't mind them. I like them. If you like them, great. If you don't, cool, do whatever. But I'll door knock a new listing and I'll do open houses. And that's usually my cold stuff. My IHAs will do. But for me personally, like I am huge on my SOI. Like that for me is, it's endless.
I'll say, you can have people in your top 100 that have never done a transaction with you.
Oh yeah, a lot of them I
Okay, so,
don't.
This is huge. You don't have to have them having done a transaction with you. One of the best, he's in my top 10. He's the owner of a furniture company. Pedersen's Furniture in Sonoma County is a big furniture location and family owned for like 150 years or something. And I probably get a deal from him every other month. No joke. There are business to business relationships that belong in your top 50, that belong in your top 10, that should be in that category.
I was just talking with Cody on our team about it. He's got a client that he's not shown him many properties, but he's sent him a lot. He's an investor, sent him a lot of deals. This guy is tight on his numbers. Like his numbers don't make sense, kind of tight. And, but he has plenty of other guys that aren't nearly as analytical as he is that don't need to make the spread that this guy does. And Cody has done plenty of business off of that because this guy is in his top 10, right? He's never done a transaction, but for 2 years, he's referring business.
So this is cool, and I'm gonna go, but I wanna make sure, because we got the top 20 here. If we start lead generating again, we start doing that. If somebody new comes into your office and knocks on the door, like Amy kept me going for a very, very long time. Take the time to reach back out to them, circle back up to them, make sure they're good.
Yeah.
Take the time to do that because it's been really easy. It's a lot of agents that are starting this that they think it's hard because they don't know otherwise. And so they're gonna be coming in this building looking for support and help. Let's just make sure as the top 20, we give it to them.
Yeah.
Be available.
And that, to piggyback off that, bold. Bold is the way. If you want to be in this business, if you're new, if you want to be in this business next year, go to bold right now. Like that, and you need to sign up for bold. It will literally keep you in the real estate industry because everyone else is not going to do that level of accountability. For real.
It's crazy, like how simple it can be if you set yourself up to succeed. And it's a system, right? To Austin and Paulina, like talking about 9 to 11, did we have an office with you guys then, like up in the bird's nest, like in the annex?
You guys were up there.
We called it the
Yeah, you
annex.
were-
So we would split it, right? We split it.
We just squatted. It was our office. We had spotters.
Yeah.
We were spotters. We had some nice spotter rights.
We did too, but.
Brian.
Hey, that was a power corner. That was a power corner. None of us were supposed to be there.
We were all
I don't condone that,
Used to
but
go
this is
there.
our old building. There's like an attic space that it was finished out and no one officed there because it wasn't.
Yeah, but that's where you guys were first.
But we-
Remember that?
It was great. Oh, I know. It was
Yeah,
great.
it was actually our stuff.
It was actually really nice because there was a door from that side of the building to go directly down and into the side of Katrina's. So
You didn't have to see anybody to get distracted, but to their point, right, like, we would all be lead generating, lead follow up, doing whatever, and I would like look over there, and the two of them are always blasting music. I mean, just blasting.
I think it's fun about us.
Oh, yeah, for sure, you guys were.
Not me, I like silence. It wasn't me.
She likes it
Maybe it was
silent
Denver,
all over
maybe it
the
was Denver, and then you were just dancing to it or something, but she was like, I would walk over there and at least twice a week, she'd be in her chair with her feet in it, and like just calling. I'm like, what are you doing?
You get in the zone.
Yeah,
It's
I was like,
such
I'm
that
like, what are
first
you
thing
doing?
get
She's
in
like,
the zone.
lead generating. Cool,
Yeah.
see you later, bye, right? So respect the other person too, that's lead generating, because I know all of us are gonna start, like, we all know that it needs to happen. So if you walk in and somebody's got a sign on their wall that says, hey, I'm doing my own thing, I'm lead
Yeah.
generating, leave me alone,
Yeah.
leave them alone. Something better be really serious if you need to.
So one thing I'm working on as a team leader, just for all of you guys, just a heads up, is I'm trying to work on getting some phone booths in the office. We're gonna build these little cubbies that have soundproof in them.
Yeah.
And just a chair and a table for your laptop where we can have, 3 or 4 of them lined up. So people can just be working. In fact, I'm gonna call them one thing booths, because if you're just doing your one thing, you will be in this business and you will be successful. And that is super fun. So we're trying to figure out how to do that right now, where to put them, but yeah, the dungeon, you should just call it the dungeon again or something.
That office was,
Hot box.
that office was like wild. It was, yeah, I mean, because there's what, like 5, 6 of us up there. And if any of us were there, it was the loudest thing and none of us would be talking to anybody except for a headset or on the phone.
Well, Tyler and Samantha Richardson had an office up there too, but they were never
But
there.
then you took, that's where Joy was.
Yeah, and then Mark Stewart was up there too on the other side.
On
He-
the other side of the hall. yeah.
His
His was at 9 to 11, his was like 9 to 6 that he was lead generating, so. Like, he was talking about city standards around lead generation.
I think for like newer people, like cold calling isn't the only way to generate business.
That's exactly right.
There are a vast variety of ways to generate business that aren't just phone calls. I don't pull business really from my sphere. I don't want to work with people I know personally. I don't want to work with my friends, and anytime I've done.
I'll take them.
I was just saying.
Anytime
What
I've
are your
done
contacts?
business with a friend, it's always way more complicated.
Yeah.
Because they expect more out of you and they think that they can call you at any time. So for me, I don't want to do business with my close friends and family because I don't want to give a deal. That's not why I'm in this business, is to give a deal. I'm in business to give you good service, not in the business to give you a deal. So for me, it was much easier to have these hard conversations with people I don't know. Because guess what? If they don't like me after I leave, well, too bad. That it's not going to hurt me at all. So there is a lot of ways that you can gain business in this business, aside from calling, aside from doing open houses. There's a lot that you can do to get out there and get a lot of contacts.
A lot of lenders have that problem as well. Oh, sorry, Brian, did you have something?
Yeah, well, to Austin's point, so like Austin and I are good friends and we lead generate completely in the opposite way, right? So there's opportunity regardless of how you lead generate, but I think it still comes back to educating yourself first. If you're a sphere-based agent, then this is the opportunity for people to really lean on you because they're terrified about the news, about the economy, about the shift, about things that are happening. Is cryptocurrency even a thing? You know, all of the noise that they're hearing, this is your opportunity to actually educate them and be their economist of choice, right? So there's opportunity to take market share in your sphere right now, as well as just through cold calling too.
I think the biggest thing when it comes to lead generation, I mean, that's what this conversation, I mean, it makes me happy that like the top 20%, the biggest conversation is about lead generating. We talked about like managing seller expectations, but very quickly we stopped and went on to lead generation, right? It keeps coming back.
Yeah.
Dan said it once long ago, I want to have so many listings that I don't give a crap if one of them leaves, right? And how do you do that? You lead generate. There's no other way to do it, right? To Austin or Blake, I think said it earlier, right? Like you lose a buyer, or Doug said it, you lose a buyer and you're like, whatever. you can still do that in this market. You just have to have enough of them that you don't care that they've
That's right.
left. Right? I think that's all.
Fill the pipeline.
Yeah, your pipeline's gotta be bigger than you care about.
I want to put an exclamation point on the front of that and on the back of it. You're gonna have so many sellers, you don't care if one of them leaves. That's the only way you can negotiate and tell them the truth.
Oh, yeah.
If you really, really care if one of them leaves, you're gonna tell them what they want to hear, and now you've lost your traction.
To your point, like you had one that was leaving and you're like, hey, do you want it?
Yeah.
You know, like I
Please,
want
baby.
somebody that I know is gonna take care of them because I care as a human, like I want this person to be, but like, I don't wanna deal with them anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't care that I lose the business.
No, I can't deal with them anymore.
Yeah.
And I want the business to go to somebody that's gonna do a good job.
Yeah, whether it's gonna work out for that person or not, I can't control, but like, I'm okay with losing it. And the only way to do that is building a big enough pipeline. And I will say that open houses are coming back. I think they were extremely successful for me. I did not do them 4 of them a weekend. I did 1, maybe 2 a weekend, but I was very consistent with it. And the open house doesn't get you the business 99% of the time.
Ooh.
It's the follow-up that
Yeah,
happens
that's
from the
right.
open house.
Yeah.
Amen.
I will give Paulina credit, because her and I talked, and this person just fell off the face of the earth, we both concluded, but like we talked to the same person
Oh, yeah.
for like
Yeah.
3 months after an open house, and this was like maybe a year ago. So like the market's crazy, we've got plenty of other stuff going on. And like I remember, and I don't know that she knew it, I knew it, but I wasn't gonna stop following up with that person, especially because if I saw them sell or buy and I saw that she posted a picture of them, I was gonna be pissed. Not that she got the business, because I like mad respect, but I'm not gonna lose, right?
Yeah.
So I look at it, everything is like a competition, right? Do the open house, great, can't control how many come through there.
Yeah.
You can door knock, you can put signs out, you can post on social media. End of the day, you can't control how many people walk through that house.
Yeah.
You can control with the 5 that walk through it, what you do with them after, right? Do you text them right away? Cool, great, that's your system. Do you call them first thing the next morning? Great, that's your system, but have a system and actually do it.
Yes, I think having a system is like the
It's
most
huge.
important part.
And for me, I'll tell you mine. When I got done with the open house, I had a scripted text that went out. Hey, John, it was great meeting you. I look forward to helping you out. If there's anything I can do, just let me know, right? They text me back, great. If they didn't, either way, I'm calling them Monday morning and just saying, hey, I know we kind of talked about blah, 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 because I'd make little random notes. Here's the lender I was mentioning to you, or here's that other property I was mentioning to you, or here, whatever it was. Not to mention, if your open house is slow, you had one guy that said he's looking for a 3-2 in Ozark, find him something else. Start calling for it, start working for it, do something a little bit different. But my script was my system was always text Sunday afternoon, evening, right after the open house, or Saturday, whatever day you do it, and then call the following business day. So if it was on a Saturday, text them on Saturday night, and then I call them first thing Monday. If it was on a Sunday, call first thing. Yeah.
Can I mention one thing on open houses, Josh?
Please.
The most important system for your open house should be the one that you build for the listing agent that you're hosting on behalf of. So the relationship matters, right? If you want to get the best open houses, be the best at holding other people's listings open. Because if you don't treat that listing with respect, you will not have the best opportunities to hold the best listings open.
So when I first started, Adam, I did a lot of their open houses, and I'm not fancy just by nature. Like that's just, you can look at my social media. I'm not the guy that's posting all the time, like none of it. I'd make a Facebook post about the open house. I'd put signs out. I would door knock. I'm not the guy that baked cookies and had balloons and did all that stuff, right? Plenty of success for those who do it. Just wasn't me, wasn't genuine, wasn't who I was. But they knew every time that I was gonna go door knock it, that I was gonna have signs out there on Friday, no later than Friday morning, and that I was going to follow up with these people that could potentially sell the house. And my first year, I had 4 or 5 deals from Grady's open houses alone. Just because I followed my system, but like to Brian's point, Kelsey would call me and say, Kelsey at the time was their marketing director, and she would holler at me and say, hey, do you want this? Because I got on their good list.
Yep, I had that too. I mean, yeah, you become the agent of choice for open houses by giving the feedback and really being there and being genuine when you say, hey, I'm here to get feedback for the seller. So if you get the stiff arm from a buyer walking through, be like, hey, I understand. I probably don't want to work with you, just to be clear, because you're already being kind of confrontational, but I have an obligation to the seller to get feedback. So what did you think of the house, and what's the name of the agent that you're working with? So that I can pass that agent's name to the listing agent and they can follow up with your agent just in case you need anything, right? So, I mean, every contact, whether or not they have an agent or not, is an opportunity to win over the listing agent and to get the best open houses.
I don't necessarily love doing my own open houses because it's like really direct feedback to me as the listing agent. You're like, oh, this sucks. Like, I overpriced it. Dang. 20 people walked through and everyone told me it's overpriced. Like, that's not fun. But to Brian's point, like, if I walk into a Grady open house and somebody said, you know, they're like, I'm like, no, listen, it's not my listing. I want the seller to have the correct information that's needed. You know, it's listed at 400,000. You say it's overpriced. Are we talking about 5, 10, 20, 30, 50 grand? Like, where do you think? Just so I can give them feedback. And I would send a picture of the feedback that I had. Like, I had like a little sign-in sheet. And most of the time, like, I would be writing on it so no one else could read it because it was awful handwriting. But I would send like a little picture of the feedback to Kelsey or to Courtney whenever I'd get done with an open house. Just say, hey, here's feedback, just so you guys know. You know, they looked at 3 others and this was the most expensive out of the 3 that compared, or whatever it may be. And sometimes it was like, yeah, it's gonna get an offer, whatever, it's a great house. You know, it doesn't always bad feedback, it can be good feedback too.
Well, when you've seen that feedback, you ask the question, what else does your team have that you would like held open this week?
100%.
Yeah, no, that's great.
There's plenty of ways.
There's a reason why they say the fortune's in the follow-up, and that really is the truth. I mean, it comes down to, I mean, to be a reliable resource for real estate for anybody, you've got to be good at follow-up and your consistency. So, yeah.
I think Brian mentioned it too, and I forgot about it, but he mentioned getting the other agent's name. So a person's like, oh yeah, I'm working with, you know, Pauline over at KW, you know, I'm sorry, I've been working with her for a while.
Oh.
I usually say, I'm really sorry, that's awful, but
She
I don't-
retired. I'm taking
I don't call them, or I don't give that information to the other listing agent. I'll actually call that agent or text them and say, hey, you know, your client, you know, Austin just walked through. They don't appear to be interested in the house, but I just want to let you know that you may want to follow up with them.
Yep.
And I can guarantee you I've gotten deals done in the future based off the fact that I will call that agent and say, listen, I'm not trying to get your person. So much of the fact that I'm going to let you know that they walked through this open house and that they were interested in it. You might want to call them and say that they might see if they're ready to write an offer.
Yeah.
Right. And just see, and building those agent relationships are important. And
I always ask if they're working with an agent, but the way that you say it, you can say it in a way that will tell you a lot about the situation. I always say, so are you working with an incredible agent team that's working for you? And number 1, are they working with an incredible agent team? Very unlikely. And number 2, are they working for them? Not always. And so whenever I ask that, they might have had a conversation with an agent, or they might have talked to somebody at Redfin, or they might have, you know, had some kind of an interaction with some kind of a Zillow rep or whatever. But if they're not having a incredible experience, if they're not working with a team, if they're not feeling like they're working for them, that gives you a foot in the door.
I had an open house yesterday and somebody came through it that was working with somebody from Blue. And I called her this morning to let her know she had no idea that they were out looking, and it was a $750,000 listing. She was so grateful that I called her.
Yeah, oh, for
She was
sure.
gonna, you know.
And I've been bored at an open house, and like, you know, I may know the other agent, or again, I'm just bored, so I'm just looking around the MLS or whatever, and I have nothing better to do when there's no one else that walks through it. Sometimes that happens, but this person's like, hey, this one's not the one that I want, but you know, it's the right style of house, 3-2 in Ozark. I'll send it to their agent. Say, hey, listen, this is a house they saw. They didn't love it. There's a couple others that are similar to it if you want to, you know, out in the area, if you want to look at them. And then I'll just send them, because believe it or not, that'll pay dividends in the future. If you write an offer on that agent's listing in the future, and they look forward, or they look back in their text message in the past, and they say, oh yeah, the last time we talked, he was literally helping me out with my client that was looking at other houses. Promise you, it's going to help you out, right? You can do that, or you can try to steal the person's client And then when it backfires on you, you'll have an awful relationship. So agent relationships are still so important. And if you're not focused on your clients at that time, focus, if like they're not your clients, then focus on the agent relationship. Let them know. Be there for them. Be helpful. There's no reason.
But in my experience, 9 times out of 10, when I say, hey, Josh, who's your agent?
Yeah.
You can't give him a text if you don't know his name.
Right? I'll ask them when they come in and then give them the like, hey, walk through your house, no big deal. I know, I caught you off guard there. Because a lot of people aren't on like friendship level with their agent, right? It's some random agent they found. Like, if you have their information, I'd love to let them know that you saw the house today and that I met you. And then let you know we had a great conversation. And if they come back through and they give me Tim's name and phone number, or Tim's name and say, yeah, it's Tim over at KW. I'm like, all right, cool. Good enough. Like, I'm gonna probably let it be. If I know Tim at KW, I'm gonna holler at him, whatever. If not, then I know that person I'm going to follow up with, right? I'm going to make sure that they weren't blowing me off. And if I call them on Monday and they're like, man, I found their name, can't believe I forgot it. Here's their information. Like, all right, cool, great, man, no big deal. I've had plenty of them that are like, hey, you're the only person that followed up with me. Like, not really working with them. I just ran into them in an open house. I just remember that they happened to be at KW. Like, it becomes a client. You didn't go behind the sun, you didn't do anything. They were just trying to blow you off. It's like anybody that walks into a department store. Do you need anything? No, just looking, right? That's their way of saying just looking. I already have an agent.
If they say Brian at KW, just pick one. All 3 of us are great. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, you're good to go behind that sign. You're safe there. No, but I mean, honestly, guys, like, if they say they have an agent, respect it. But if they're just trying to blow you off, you're okay to have a phone call and say, hey guys, thanks, appreciate it. Whatever. Like, you're not doing anything out of line if you're not actually trying to go snipe them.
As we're coming to a close today, I was just gonna say that one thing I love and that everybody in here should take away from this is how excited all the top 20% are on what's next. And that if you just do what they're doing, that you will be fine.
Yeah.
And that you can actually take territory during this time. You can actually increase your business during this time because other people are going to have the opposite reaction. They're gonna have the opposite mentality. They're gonna have the opposite attitude. And that's what sets KW apart. And that's why we take so much growth in this time versus previous.
Austin had a great point. Like, there's going to be more opportunity to, to find the stranded that we've not had over the last 18 months, 2 years, right?
I'm super excited because please don't take what I'm about to say wrong. I'm excited to see people leave. There are too many people in this business right now that got into it and should not be agents, like just being completely honest. Unprofessional.
Yeah.
They don't represent their clients well. They don't care. They're out to make a quick buck.
Yeah.
And they need to be out because they're giving the rest of us a bad reputation.
Terrible.
And that hurts because then I have to work, you have to work, everybody has to work extra hard to prove that we're not the slimy car salesman.
I haven't noticed that until just now when I've had a house that's not sold immediately, that like, it is awful, like horrendous. Can I show it in 5 minutes? Can I show it in 15 minutes?
Well, and they don't pay
Can
attention.
I didn't show up at all. I called the next day, it's like, I didn't call to cancel and my sellers are out in their car with their dog that's 15 years old.
Yeah, no.
Before they put it down
don't-
because you're asking to cancel,
I mean, I've had listings.
They're just not thinking about people's
No.
time or
I've had
consideration for
agents
agents
that
or
are
owners.
newer that have just shown up to listings
Yep.
that clearly are
Could-
not vacant.
It was
Like
me.
they have furniture and like they're opening the lockbox and the sellers are calling you like,
It
do
was
we have a
Alex.
showing?
I just had an agent last week
No.
show up in ripped, sweaty, like disgusting gym gear, pouring sweat, was just out of the gym, like looked awful. Like awful.
Was
Like,
it 15
I know.
minutes?
Their buyers were sitting there waiting on him, and this is not even a new person. I was like, and my seller, she's like, this is happening, and so I get to hear the play-by-play. I'm like, God, now she's like sitting outside of her house watching these idiots. She's so pissed off.
I mean,
Like,
don't get me
just
wrong,
lower
we've
price
all
cancel,
had like
please.
the Sunday mornings where we have to go show and we really don't want to be awake.
and want to show the house on Sunday.
I think your point is right, like, if this is going to get rid of the people that care to make this a profession.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, which, again, when we keep bringing that up, for anybody in here that is newer, right, don't look at that like a negative thing.
Yeah.
You guys need to be just as excited about that as any of the teams as well, actually probably more excited. Because again, you're in this room, right? Like you are in an office that is learning based. If you're at another brokerage, right? And I'm just as guilty as that. Like, I'm the guy that's left the gym to go show clients from the gym. So we all look like a,
Well, not 15 minutes late.
maybe, yeah. No, I mean, there's standards, right? For sure. But like, the point is like, be professional no matter what that means at whatever level. And that's like, be involved. Don't just wing it. Like, you can't get away with that anymore. We've all had it easy, right? To wing it and get away with it on the listing side at least, right?
It's gonna get really hard on listings. People are gonna actually realize that they're a lot more work than.
See, I don't know that it's gonna get hard, it's gonna get different,
3 or 4
right?
years.
Like,
It's different.
it's not gonna be any harder or any easier.
And your conversations have to be different, because you don't want all the listings
I would rather.
anymore, you know, like, you
If you don't want any of them, give them to me.
Exactly. I would
I'll take
rather
'em.
5 listings over 20 buyers.
Okay, 100%.
Any day of the week.
Yeah.
Buyers exhaust me. I am not a relationship-based person. I want to have phone calls with my sellers, and I'm happy to change the conversation that I have to have with people.
For sure.
Or
I'm not-
better conversations need to be had, not that you don't want the listing, but you have like,
From the get-go,
yeah.
easy early on.
Well,
100%.
and when you have a listing that doesn't sell right away, you're gonna get buyers off of that.
Yes.
You're gonna get signed calls,
Yes.
so I take the
It
listings
used
all
to
day,
be,
every day.
when I first started, oh my gosh, Ignite and Bold and everything else was every listing gets you 1.5 more clients, right? That was the thing. It's like, I haven't had a chance on a listing in the last 18 months to 2 years to get half a client on any of them, right? I don't even have a chance, like, we have to pull down Facebook posts because they're no longer an open house and there's no longer availability and there's no longer this and there's no longer that. It's like, never mind, we can't market it anymore because it's gone, right? We have that opportunity now. Yeah. Right, and yeah, and like gosh, I'll never forget like how many agents, myself included, I would text anybody and everybody and say, can I market your listing? And that's when the conversation was really strange, when people were like, no, because these were on for 30, 40, 50 days.
I know it.
Right? And people were like, no, it's weird. I don't want you marketing it. That was strange. Now, it's like one day I market the person, like, I just don't need you. Like, that conversation is going to change.
Yeah. Well, and remember this, that Jim Bolin is our head broker. Every deal that's done in this office is under his license. And he says, absolutely share each other's listings. So
Please.
just so you know, it's the actual broker that gives the authority on who can share each other's listings. Yeah, we can be courteous. Maybe there are people in this office that don't want their, listings shown or something.
And there are instances when your buyer or your seller doesn't want it. I've had sellers call me
Yes.
freaking out, thinking that Kim was stealing my listing because she shared it on, not you, it was a joke. It was somebody else. But I had a client freaking out, thinking that another agent was trying to steal the listing.
How dare you expose the listing that I'm trying
And I
to
was
sell?
like, no, like, she's out in Mount Vernon, I need her to share it, right? Like, share them anyone you want. But, it doesn't hurt to create that relationship and just, the first time you do it, shoot them a text, shoot them a call, and just say, hey, do you guys mind if I share your listings? Ours, open game, share them all you want. Any of ours. Anybody else have closing thoughts? I'll say one thing, and it all boils down to it, it always does, no matter what, lead generate.
That's right. At
And-
least
and-
follow up.
And bigger than that, lead follow-up.
Yeah.
Right, if you can lead generate all you want, all day long, and you can get all the appointments, but if you don't follow up with them, it doesn't matter.
And I'll do a shameless plug, Quantum Leap, 21st, 22nd. If you want to create your plan for what your lead generation looks like, for what your business plan looks like, if you want to create your one-page business plan, that's the place to do it.
Ranton? Or here,
Josh,
here, oh, here.
Thanks for taking time to do this.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know what?
So
Thank you.
my first client from an open house, I met them at the open house and I had like my little follow-up system. I texted them after the open house, called them Monday morning, texted them Wednesday, and then after that, like once a week, I would send them houses similar to the house that we met at. I think I sent her a message every week for like 6 months. And I was like the crazy ex that just would not stop texting you.
Oh, yeah.
Finally, she's like, oh yeah, I like that one. Can we look at it?
And
It does work.
My thing that I did too on that, I would send them potential other listings, but I would really focus, because I knew I was doing one every week and it was something for me to share to them. I would just send them the open house I was gonna be at. Like, hey, just really enjoyed talking with you guys. You know, like if you don't have anything else going on this Sunday, I'll be at 123 Main Street, come swing by. And
Oh, Brian Fisher.
Brian Fisher was talking up saying.
Brian, just unmute yourself.
Hey, sorry, guys. Just wanted to share a little paper that I've started reading. But straight from the Fed, the title of the paper is Volatility in Home Sales and Prices, Supply or Demand. So it came out last month. I'm only a few pages into it, but something that you might want to look at reading.
Thanks, Brian.
can you put that in the chat? I think
He did.
Keep it on the Facebook.
Oh, I did. You're welcome.
The Zoom will be on Facebook. We'll share it on there so you can see it in the chat. Cool. Guys, we'll do this again probably next month. Thank you all for participating.
Thank you, Josh, for inviting us.